So for step 40, making the holes, well, you can see that we've got 2 at the front, 2 at the rear, and that's for the body mount posts. There is one showing here for the antenna pipe, which I'm not going to do, as I explained in the last step. And then we've got the mirrors, and then on the front we've got 4 holes for the bumper and the light bar, and then this will be for the rear bumper as well. So I'll be pulling out this handy dandy body reamer, so let's put the holes into the car. So I'm not going to show you every hole being done. I think we'll just do one on camera and then I'll do the rest. But as you can see, there's our Opel Kadett body. And let's just do this one right here. You can see these are 6.5mm holes. Well, the beauty of this body reamer is, which I just love as a tool, is if you look at one of the edges, there it is, you can see that there are numbers. So 6.5, you follow this down, it's going to be between 6 and 7. So basically where my nail is, that's the mark that we want to aim for. Well, because this has a very sharp point to the end, what we're going to do is we're going to take this and just, you can see that there's an indentation right there. That's our starting point. So I'm going to put this onto the center. And by pushing and spinning, you can see that we've kind of made the hole a little bigger. So I'm going to take this sideways just so you can see it. I'm going to stick this in the hole, and all you do is turn, and it's got a nice cutting edge on it. And I mean, I'll go in and out of this just to make sure that I'm getting it at the right space, but basically you're just going to keep putting pressure on this as you spin until you get to that 6.5, and I can measure the 6.5 from the outer hole. So if you look there, if you can see that, we're looking at 5.5 roughly. That'll focus on there. So I'm going to push a little more and spin. Now where are we at? Now we're getting closer. So there's the 6. And in fact, if I just sort of push that down a bit, I can go a little further. But that's approximately the 6.5 mark right there. So the other thing is I can do it lightly now and just clean out the hole, so I'm not putting on any extra pressure, and it'll make a nice hole in the body. And I mean, same thing on the back side. You can see that it might be a little, some of the, the crustier plastic bits that were coming off. If I go in again, but from the reverse and kind of spin it, I can clean out all of that to get a nice clean hole. So again, if I stick that in, I can measure that out. I'm at about the 6.5 right there. As you get closer. So I'm good with that. So I'm going to be moving on to that other hole. Now, if I do it one more time, let's just make sure that that is in the center. Yes. Put a little bit of pressure. Putting the pressure gives you a bigger hole to work with. I'll use my finger on the other side to make sure that this is working. And spin. And spin. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I'm comfortable with the length. But you can see that if we look there, we're only at the 5.5. So let's push a little further. Clear out that. That's basically the 6.5 right there. Just going to clean it out a bit. but I'm good with that. There's your 6.5. So there's our front body mount holes ready to go. So I'm just going to go and do the other holes now, and then we'll come back and take a quick look. So there it is, the front holes. There's our rear holes. We've got our side mirror holes are in place, and then the bumper, we've got the 4 holes on the front, and then of course we've got the final 2 holes on the rear. Now the one thing I will say is that the top is pretty thick plastic. The rear and front, it's pretty thin, meaning if you're going to use this body reamer, don't put too much pressure on the back, because you'll go in pretty quick, and if you're turning too much, it could actually just cut right past the mark you want, because these rear and front ones need to be at the 6.5 millimeter. So yeah, just be careful, because the front and the rear are a thinner plastic. The top's okay, it's going to take a bit more pressure, but this is really, really thin. So just be careful when you're using the reamer not to put too much pressure on it. And you know, one of the things, just as a last note, you'll see that there's like a thin plastic layer that's kind of coming off. I'll put it on darker surface. Just know that if you're a beginner building this, there is a thin layer of plastic that gets peeled off after you've painted this, so that you're not worried about overspray getting onto the body. So when you're spraying the inside of this, once it's all done, you're ready to go, there is a thin layer of film that you peel off of all of this, and that's what you're seeing on here, that the thin layer of plastic is starting to peel away because I've been cutting through it. But you don't need to worry about that. That's for later. When your painting's finished, we peel it off. But anyways, there we go. There are all the holes in the body. So step 40 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 41, and I'm just going to show you how I like to mark the body in preparation for cutting it out. So for step 41, cutting out the body, well, you can see that this darker grayed out area, all of that needs to be cut out. And you can see here's a picture from the back, same thing. Now, when you're looking at the body, I often look at this and go, well, wait a minute, like, how are you going to make sure that you're cutting out the right spot? Because with it being so clear, it can be very difficult. Well, here's what I like to do. I use a black marker. I use these Lexan scissors. So they are designed for polycarbonate cutting. There's a straight edge, and this one is a curved edge. And then the tool I absolutely love is this one here. This is a thumb X-Acto knife. And the reason I love this is because I have full and complete control of the blade, so that it's not going to slide off my finger. It is there. Now I'm left-handed, so I'll just switch this over. But if I take this, when I am cutting, I can make fine-tune adjustments because my finger is on the top of the blade, and I'm not worried about either this slipping and cutting myself or cutting something too much on the body itself, because I have the ability to have a lot of pressure and not worrying too much about where that blade is going. And I mean, I'll show you what I mean by that. But this feels very safe, and it's so much easier to control your cut lines when you're using a tool like this. So those are the 4 things that I like to use. So I'm going to show you how I do it. So the first thing we have to do, if you look at the body, is we need to make sure that we're getting the right line for cutting. And the only way you can do that is use a black felt marker. This is a Sharpie, and I've got the fine tip one because, just as an example, you can see that there is a natural cut mark right there, which is the bottom of the chassis. So if I take this and I put this pen right here, I'm going to go along the line, and it will stay in that line because it's a nice clean mark. And because it's a groove, the pen stays inside of that. So you can see I now have a line that's going to be easy to cut because I can see it. So the same thing here. Now this gets a little bit more difficult, but you can see that there is a line. So I'm going to kind of give it I get the idea that there is a line there. And as long as I keep the pen inside that line, which is indented, it should give me a nice clean circle, which it does. And it gives me something to work on, or work with, I should say. I shouldn't really go over it again because you can see that it's just gonna mark it up. But there we go. So if I do the same thing on the back and fit that through, you kind of get the idea. I'm going to take it from back here. And there we go. Now, just so you can see, notice there is a nice line I can see now for cutting. So I'm going to mark this now. You get the idea. I'm now going to go around the whole car, and then we'll get to starting to cut that body out. So here is the body, completely marked out all over. So there's one thing I want to show you. You'll notice here that I slipped up and the pen left the line and went up. And some of you might say, oh no, like you've marked up the body. Well, no, I haven't, because remember, there is a clear film over the entire thing. So the reason you can draw on this with your marker is it doesn't matter what marks you make of it, because it's all going to be peeled off after you've painted it. So this just makes it so much easier to cut. You've got a nice cut line, so now it's a matter of getting in there and starting to work on it. So now we're ready to start cutting this out. And you could start using the Lexan scissors, but this is where this comes in, because they want you, or the easiest way to cut Lexan is to make an incision and follow the line. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's take this line for example. Now because I have full control over this blade, I'm trying to do this with the camera in front of me, but let's just see. So if I take this blade and I take this and I score it, and I'm not putting a lot of pressure, all I'm wanting to do is follow the line that we just created with the marker. Now you can see I've left the line, so I'm going to go back. I'm just going to follow it along. Now I'm going to go back here a second. Yeah. Well, you can see I've already kind of cut it because it's pretty thin. But let's say now we've done that, I'm going to take the scissors. I'm just going to cut into it. Get to the line. And I'm doing this in pieces here because I've got a nice straight line. So let's cut to here as well. And because we've made an incision, I can fold this back. And voila, we've got it cut. Now I'm going to trim it because I can use the blade again if I want to, or use the scissors to just sort of trim that up a bit. But that will give you a cleaner line than trying to cut it with scissors, because you know what happens. You start leaving the line, and oftentimes it's hard to get scissors in there. So that's the way to do it. And you know, if I continue this, let's take our wheel well. I'm going to slowly cut along it. And follow it down. And that blade has come out for some reason. Oh, I've got to lock it in place. And we do the same here. I'm just going to follow that marker line. So I've got my fingers on the blade, but my index finger is controlling it, and I know it's not going to slip out of my hand. Okay, so if we grab our scissors again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it there, get to the edge. I'm going to go up, because I'd like to do this in chunks. I don't want to take out the whole thing, because you never know if something hasn't quite worked. And if I take this and bend it back, see how I've got a fairly clean line? Now I'm going to have to clean that up just a touch because there's little bits on there. But if you notice it, it's got quite a nice cut line to it. And so same thing with this. I'm actually just going to take it to here. And I'm making sure that I don't get the blade all the way, but I can take this piece now, fold it back, and it's off. And so for here, I'm going to do the same thing. Take that, fold it back, it pops off. Now if you've noticed, that wheel well is actually pretty good. It's pretty clean. I may kind of just clean this edging up a bit. You can see that the marker was a little lower there, so it needs to go up a bit. But as a whole, this can just be cleaned up a bit. So I'm going to do that all the way around. So you get the idea. So that's, the wheel wells are often the hardest part, and we've just done one. It's not too bad. So I'm going to do the rest of the car, cut it all out, clean it up, and then we'll come back and take a quick look. So there we go. The body is now completely cut out all the way around. Very, very cool. So now it's going to be on to the painting. So step 41 is complete. So now we're going to move on to step 42, and let's get that body painted.